Have you ever felt a sudden, inexplicable chill while talking to someone, even as they smiled warmly? As if something hidden and deeply unsettling was moving just beneath the surface of their perfect words. Today, we'll uncover what your intuition might be warning you about, and why trusting these feelings could be the key to protecting yourself from hidden psychological dangers. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychologist, along with ancient spiritual schools, dedicated his life to exploring these silent signals. In the East, Buddhism speaks of the darkened mirror. In the West, Christianity warns of the beam in your own eye. Sufi mystics refer to the veil of light, even harder to detect than darkness. In our video today, we'll enter the hidden world of these psychological warning signs, learning to identify and protect ourselves from dangers that lurk behind perfect exteriors, in others, and perhaps within ourselves. In Jungian psychology, the shadow is the part of ourselves that we refuse to see. It's a collection of impulses, desires, emotions, and traits that do not fit the self-image we want to present to the world. Perhaps it's envy, anger, selfishness, or even simply a kind of spontaneity that doesn't match our sense of order and control. Rather than disappearing, what we reject or deny doesn't vanish. Instead, it operates just beneath conscious awareness, shaping our reactions, feelings, and choices. What's particularly striking is that the shadow isn't only about bad qualities. It's made up of anything our conscious self finds incompatible with its ideals, including talents, doubts, or even suppressed joy. We banish these elements for fear they would disrupt our image, our relationships, or our place in society. So why do good people, without intending to, sometimes hurt others? Often, it happens not because they're bad, but because the parts of themselves they've blocked off, their unacknowledged shadow, find other, indirect ways to manifest. Take, for example, a person who prides themselves on constant politeness or self-control. Instead of expressing anger directly, they might shut down emotionally or become cold, pushing away those close to them. Or think of someone who harshly criticizes a type of behavior in others. It may be their own rejected impulse, reflected back at them. The Sufi mystics go even deeper, describing the veil of light, so subtle and alluring that people mistake its blinding brilliance for virtue, all the while remaining unaware of the truest, deepest parts of themselves. These traditions all share a message. As long as we refuse to confront our shadow, it will leak out into the world, often distorting our relationships and sabotaging our intentions. Now I want you to take a moment and reflect. Do you recognize your own shadow? When have you found yourself reacting sharply to someone for reasons you couldn't explain? What if the very things you most dislike or judge in others are actually reflections of fears, emotions, or desires you've banished from yourself? The shadow isn't something to destroy, it's something to see, to integrate, and to learn from. When you dare to look at your own darkness with honesty and compassion, you gain a power over it, and possibly a greater understanding and mastery over your life. One of the most fascinating and risky psychological mechanisms Carl Jung described is projection. Projection happens when we unconsciously assign our own uncomfortable feelings, motives, or traits to someone else. Instead of recognizing these qualities or emotions in ourselves, we see them, sometimes magnified, in the people around us. Think about this. Have you ever felt an inexplicable irritation towards someone, only to later realize that the trait you disliked in them was something you struggled with yourself. Or perhaps you've been irresistibly drawn to someone, not because of who they truly are, but because they reflect back at you a lost or hidden part of your own personality. Projection turns other people into mirrors, sometimes flattering, sometimes painfully distorted for our inner world. Here, projection didn't just cloud perception. It directly caused unnecessary pain and the breakdown of relationships. Or consider romantic relationships. Someone may accuse their partner of being distant or neglectful, while in truth, they themselves have been emotionally withdrawing or refusing to confront deeper issues within the relationship. The shadow finds a way to surface by painting others with its own colors. In our connected world, projection doesn't stop at personal relationships. On social media, group projections can spiral out of control. Online communities may target individuals or entire groups, labeling them as dangerous, corrupt, or evil. Often, these labels are less about the true nature of others and more about what the community refuses to face within itself: fear, anxiety, insecurity. Groupthink and online outrage amplify these projections, sometimes leading to real harm for people who simply became convenient screens for collective shadows. If we don't recognize when we are projecting, we not only become vulnerable to manipulation and misunderstanding, but we may unconsciously hurt others, creating rifts in our communities, our relationships, and ultimately in ourselves. The journey to healthier, more compassionate relationships starts with a simple question: what part of myself am I really seeing in the other? Let's take a closer look at one of the most dangerous traps in our inner world: ego inflation. In Jungian psychology, ego inflation is what happens when a person becomes identified with a grandiose version of themselves, the savior, the chosen leader, the one who alone can distinguish right from wrong. Instead of seeing themselves as a complex, imperfect human being, they start to believe they embody higher truths, or even represent the will of the divine itself. Look around and you'll see plenty of examples, especially in the histories of religion, politics, and social movements. Some spiritual leaders have claimed absolute authority, convincing followers they alone have a direct line to the divine. In such groups, abuse and manipulation are often justified as for your own good. In the world of politics, inflated egos may see their decisions as infallible, painting dissenters as enemies of truth or as obstacles to a greater cause. History is littered with the damage done when a single great leader becomes certain that only their vision matters, sometimes at catastrophic costs to millions. It can also happen, though less dramatically, in communities that idolize a celebrity, influencer, or thought leader. When fans build someone up as flawless, always wise, always right, even the person themselves may start to believe it, losing touch with their humanity and their flaws. Jung warned that the bigger and more inflated a person's ego becomes, the greater the eventual collapse when reality, or the repressed shadow, breaks through. The danger is not just personal. An inflated ego can seduce whole groups, foster cult-like thinking, and sow seeds of extremism. The Dalai Lama openly speaks about his own moments of anger, frustration, and human weakness. He sees enlightenment not as the absence of darkness, but as the willingness to face and befriend it. Saint Teresa of Avila described her own periods of spiritual crisis and doubt, using them as opportunities to grow, rather than to build an image of perfection. So the real sign of maturity and spiritual sanity isn't loud certainty. It's quiet openness, gentle self-questioning, the courage to admit you're still learning. The more we recognize the risks of ego inflation, the safer we are from ourselves and from those who claim to be above all reproach. In Jungian psychology, the persona is the psychological mask each of us wears in society. It's the social role we play, how we speak, behave, and present ourselves in order to be accepted, respected, or to fit into different groups. The persona isn't inherently bad. It helps us function and cooperate in the world. But problems arise when we over-identify with this mask and lose touch with our true self inside. Let's imagine a woman who is beloved by her colleagues. She's always smiling, ready to help, never complains or snaps at anyone. She seems to be the perfect friend, employee, and role model, happy, strong, resilient. Yet behind closed doors she feels lonely, pressured, and increasingly anxious. Sometimes she breaks down in tears at night, barely understanding why. Life feels strangely unreal, as if she's only performing a part, not allowed to truly be herself. Archetypal possession is one of the most fascinating and unsettling phenomena in Jungian psychology. It describes the state in which a person loses their usual psychological flexibility and becomes rigidly identified with a powerful collective archetype. In such moments, a person ceases to be a fully individual, nuanced human being, and instead becomes a vessel for a universal pattern, a force that seems almost mythic in its power. Archetypes like the victim, the savior, and the infallible judge live deep within the collective unconscious of humanity. On a healthy day, these patterns give our lives depth, meaning, and context. But when we are possessed by them, rather than informed by them, our own personality fades, and we become mere actors following an ancient script. For example, someone deeply identified with the eternal victim archetype will move through life convinced they are always being wronged, helpless to change their fate, and perpetually vulnerable. When the savior archetype takes over, a person feels compelled to rescue or fix others at every turn, often disregarding boundaries and the real needs of those they intend to help, sometimes sacrificing themselves for causes no one actually asked them to join. What's most remarkable is how easily ordinary people can slip into these roles. You might notice someone who, over time, speaks and acts in repetitive, stereotyped patterns, as if reading lines from a role rather than responding freshly to the present moment. Their eyes might seem strangely bright or hard, their energy a bit uncanny, something ancient shining through. They become impervious to criticism, absolutely certain they are right, and often immune to empathy or compromise. To be near them can feel alienating, as if you're not engaging with a unique person anymore, but instead with a fixed character from a story much older than any individual life. This phenomenon is not merely philosophical, it has real-world consequences. A person possessed by an archetype is unable to self-reflect, to notice contradictions, or to come back to the gentle imperfection of ordinary existence. They drag others into their psychic drama, creating cycles of conflict, suffering, and misunderstanding until the spell is broken. Recognizing when archetypal possession is at play, in ourselves or in others, is the crucial first step toward regaining our individuality. Only then can we find the freedom to respond to life as our genuine selves, integrating the wisdom of the archetypes without becoming their unwitting puppets. You might suddenly feel uneasy, anxious, or just unable to trust them, even though on the surface, everything seems totally fine. This instinct kicks in quickly, almost before you realize it. Deep down, we just know when someone's mask doesn't match who they really are, even if we don't have the words to explain why. The big takeaway: both our instincts and our biology are always on alert. Behind every flawless social mask, there's usually a hidden cost. If we're always adapting and lose ourselves in trying to be what others expect, we risk sacrificing our own true identity, real feelings, and genuine happiness. Now let's talk about another trap that can keep us stuck: the compulsion to repeat. Think about those times when, even though you know better, you end up repeating the same painful patterns or finding yourself in the same kinds of toxic situations over and over again. It's almost like being caught in a maze, replaying old disappointments and heartbreaks, no matter how hard you try to make different choices. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, the powerful but unconscious drive that pulls us back into recreating the very experiences that hurt us the most, almost like our minds are stuck running a script we didn't write. Neuroscience adds another layer, showing how early traumas can literally wire our brains, setting up stubborn pathways that our minds fall into again and again, even if those paths lead straight to pain and trouble. Here's what's really wild: this compulsion doesn't just affect us personally. It echoes throughout our lives, flowing into our relationships, our families, even our workplaces and communities. Through our words, our choices, even our moods, we draw in the exact same situations and people needed to replay those old dramas. The result: cycles of blame, conflict, and victimhood that can feel impossible to escape. As psychoanalyst Donald Couch said, unresolved trauma demands to be reenacted. Without stepping in and doing something different, those cycles can trap not just us, but everyone around us in an endless loop of pain. The good news: the very first step toward freedom is recognizing this pattern in yourself. When you shine a light on these cycles, face them head-on, and understand their roots, whether spiritual or biological, you open the door to a new way forward, one built on healing, deeper connection, and finally, real freedom, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life touches yours. First, whenever a strong emotion rises, maybe you feel angry, jealous, or deeply hurt, pause for a moment. Notice what's happening inside you without judgment. Just be curious. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? The more you listen in these moments, the more you begin to recognize the hidden parts of yourself that want your attention. From there, you might find it helpful to keep a shadow journal. After a difficult conversation or a day when your emotions run high, simply sit down and write about it. Don't filter or edit, just let your thoughts spill out onto the page. Over time, you'll start to see patterns, certain triggers, recurring feelings, or stories you tell yourself. This isn't about criticizing yourself. It's about gently shining a light on what you usually keep in the dark. Once you've started noticing these patterns, try sharing what you're discovering with someone you trust, a close friend, a mentor, or even an online community. Saying these things out loud is powerful. It makes the weight lighter and helps you realize you're not alone in your struggles. Other people often have stories that mirror your own, and that sense of connection is healing in itself. And of course, regular mindfulness or meditation can make a big difference. Each day, take a few quiet minutes just to observe your thoughts and feelings as they come and go. You don't need to judge them, push them away, or hold on to them. Instead, notice how they shift when you meet them with patience. The most important thing is this: don't fight your shadow, Listen to it, start a real conversation, and let it teach you. Step by step, you'll find more freedom, more energy, and a deeper sense of who you really are. Let's bring this journey to life with a story you might recognize. Imagine someone, we'll call him Mark. Mark is a young professional who always strives to be the nice guy at work. Outwardly, he's agreeable and helpful, earning praise from managers and co-workers alike. But inside, Mark wrestles with resentment and self-doubt, especially when others get promotions or recognition he secretly longs for. Instead of addressing these feelings, Mark buries them, telling himself he should just be grateful. One evening, after losing a promotion he quietly hoped for, Mark finds himself alone and frustrated. Instead of ignoring his emotions this time, he grabs a notebook and starts writing honestly about his envy and disappointment. At first, it's uncomfortable, but gradually, he realizes his resentment isn't just about missing the promotion. Deep down, Mark wants to take more creative risks and put his authentic ideas forward, but fear of rejection has kept him silent. This new awareness becomes a turning point. Mark decides to talk with a close friend about his struggle and reflects on what he really wants. He finds the courage to volunteer for a project at work that excites him, even if it means risking rejection. He stops masking his ambitions and instead shares them openly, realizing that everyone has hidden doubts and dreams. To Mark's surprise, this vulnerability brings him closer to his team and even inspires collaboration. Mark's story shows us something powerful. When we stop running from our shadow and dare to face what we fear inside, we open doors to true creativity, allowing new ideas and talents to emerge. Deep healing, learning to accept and love all parts of ourselves. Stronger connections, forging honest, supportive relationships. Ultimately, the journey to wholeness isn't about being perfect. It's about being genuine. When you embrace both your light and your shadow, you become truly free to shape your own story, moving from old cycles into a life of connection, creativity, and growth. Are you finding value in these explorations into deep psychology, shadow work, and authentic healing? Don't miss out on even more powerful journeys into the worlds of Jung, spiritual wisdom, and real stories of inner transformation right here on the Psyche Weave. Hit subscribe to the Psyche Weave channel right now and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss a single episode packed with insight and inspiration. Share your thoughts, experiences, and questions in the comments. Your voice matters. Help spread consciousness and healing by sharing these videos with friends, family, and anyone on the path. Are you ready to explore your own depths with us and weave more meaning and harmony into your life? Drop a comment below, let us know your breakthroughs, and don't hesitate to share these insights with others in need. Subscribe and ring the bell so you'll always be first to discover the next transformative journey.